Hey, it's Joe. I got another deal here that was sent in to me by Natasha Randolph from Detroit. Natasha says, I have two rental properties I got pretty cheap, but they're causing me issue due to lack of payment by the renters. I do have a really great property manager, though. The one that is a major issue, however, is a condominium. I purchased the property in a Detroit suburb in a pretty nice area. Detroit, as everyone knows, has taken major hits in the real estate market. The issue is the condo association is basically insolvent on this condo she's talking about. They have a water bill in my area of the complex alone of $17,900. They haven't had a zero balance on the water bill since 2005. I found this out after hearing a rumor and going to the city water and tax office. And by the way, these problems with homeowners associations, they don't happen very often. I've seen a lot of deals, and you don't see this stuff happen very often. I'm dealing with a situation on one of my condos right now where the builder went out of business before he finished the condo association. So we've got these properties. They're pretty new. They're nice condos, but the tax assessment is incorrect. Nobody's paying taxes on those. There's issues with that. But I'm still on the deed for the condo that I own, and the assessment, the tax assessors are not going to take those properties away from me because the builder didn't pay his share of the taxes. So I'm still protected on that. Same thing with the water bills. The likelihood that they'll shut off the water for all the units, assuming each unit is individually metered, is very, very slim. I don't see that actually happening unless they're all on the same meter and the meter is being paid by the condo association, which kind of sounds like is what she's talking about here. So you ought to check that out, Natasha. It's unusual for the water company to even allow that kind of arrears. So I'd be talking to the water company personally and asking them about that specific condo that you're talking about rather than just the homeowners association. Now, I think it's conceivable that there would be a homeowners association that had sprinkler systems that had water bills that weren't paid because the homeowners association wasn't managed properly, and those things could be turned off. But it's not going to really impact the people that are living in the houses other than the fact that their grass is going to die. So, or the homeowners association, the maintenance people are not going to have access to water. And granted, that's not going to be a good situation, and you want to try to avoid that type of situation. But it's pretty rare that it happens, and I wouldn't worry too much about homeowners associations getting into these situations. I'm having my manager search other citations and liens that are presently on the property. The vacancy rate is through the roof. I would guess around 75%, and will obviously be 100% if the city turns off the water, which I expect to happen any day. On top of this, of course, there are a series of ongoing maintenance issues that include decaying roof, rotting soffits, holes in the parking lot, crumbling bricks. The place is a mess, it sounds like. I have one tenant in the unit which I renovated, and it looks great, but the rest of the situation is pretty dismal. I'd like to take the situation and make lemonade out of this obvious lemon, but quite frankly, I'm not sure how to do that. I have no idea where to begin. I've considered buying the available units in the building, and there are many, and as a majority owner for the association voting them, I don't really even know if this is possible. It's probably not possible. There's probably mortgages on these other condos. And now, if you're talking about a multifamily building, that's a different story. And I don't think that's what you're talking about here. I think you're talking about condos that have separate titles on each of them, that have separate water bills, all these things, which is the way most condos are set up. And they probably, most of them have mortgages on them. And some of those mortgages have obviously gone into foreclosure. That's probably why you've got a vacancy rate like that, because people have been kicked out. It's also possible that they were owned by a bunch of investors, and that investor lost his shirt and had to give those properties back, and they're vacant as well. So the question is, who owns those properties? Can you track them down? Can you find out what the situation is with their mortgages? Can you get their mortgages back on track, have them deed you the property? You know, have they only been not paying for a month or 2 months, or have they been vacant for months and months and months, and have the property's already gone back into to the bank? If they've gone back to the bank, you could buy them directly from the bank, probably get a discount from the bank. Bottom line, though, I think you need to find out, you need to protect the investment that you've got right now. So you need to find out what's going on with the homeowners association, with the water. Is your water going to be cut off? You need to find out those things, because I don't know if you've got the full information here on this. You know, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe it does affect everybody, but I have a feeling they're not going to shut off one particular unit if it's making its payments properly. On the other hand, if the city comes in and says this house is no longer habitable, then you've got, you know, Health and Hospital coming in, you've got the city coming in saying, you know, we're going to shut you down, they're going to condemn the property. And that may knock you out of it altogether as well. And I don't know if you own this property free and clear, or if you have a note on it. If you have a note on it, and you know, it's potentially this all gets shut down, potentially it could damage your credit that way. On the other hand, does it make sense to keep putting money into a bad investment? That's questionable. I think that if you want to make money as a real estate investor, you should start looking for ways to do it without using your money, without using your credit. Use the zero down structures that I taught in the earlier videos. Go get my programs, pushbuttonmethod.com, or look at zerodowninvesting.com for my mentor program, and learn from me how this stuff is done without using money, without using credit, without having to deal with all this due diligence that you've got to do. I mean, all the things, I mean, I just gave you a fraction probably of all the things that you're going to have to do to find out whether or not this is a viable investment. You should be able to look at a property and determine whether or not it's a good investment just by looking at the numbers. You know, getting the basic numbers, knowing who to talk to. And the best way to get a good deal is by talking to somebody who wants to sell the property. If you go into the cities and say, here, let's find some properties that are in foreclosure, and you try to contact those people that are in foreclosure, the likelihood is that nobody's going to respond to you. Nobody's going to talk to you. You know, probably the best way to do that is go knock on doors of those people, but they don't want to talk to you. A lot of times they won't even answer the door, and it takes a huge amount of time to do it. You're not able to automate the process. If instead you went and talked to people who had their properties for sale by owner, or were trying to rent their properties, those people are actively seeking ways to solve their problem with their property. And you've got solutions if you use the techniques that I give you. So use those things instead. Don't use your money, don't use your credit, use the zero down structures, use the flipping techniques, use the long-term investment techniques that I've taught you, and take those things to build a business where you start having cash flow coming in. Then automate that process so that you've got, again, the push button process of everything's being automated by technology or is being outsourced to someone else, and you keep only a couple of high value tasks for yourself, tasks that not too many other people can do, things that you've developed your skills to do, which is talking to the seller and putting the deal together. The deal is where the money is at. If you remember that one thing, the deal is where the money is at, and learn how to put together a deal that's viable. And you do that. That's what this whole video series is about, learning how to figure out whether a deal makes sense or not. And then once you find what makes sense, how can you replicate the process of finding more and more deals that make sense? What's the way to do it? And that's what the push button method is about. It's showing you how to make that process happen over and over again with a fairly narrow scope of properties, but properties that are easy to access and for sale by people that are actively trying to sell it rather than people that are trying to hide from everybody. So if you work with those types of things, you're going to be a lot better off and a lot more likely to make money on it. So Natasha, good luck with it, and don't spend too much time on it. Instead, focus on making some money in real estate using some of the things that I'm teaching. All right. Thanks now.